Summary. In this video, we'll be talking about the growth of mobile devices. At Catalyst, we design for mobile devices first, because we believe it enables us to create a more efficient, innovative, and better focused design for our clients. Statistics. This is one of the two latest books in the hugely popular Book Apart series for website designers. And we believe that the techniques discussed in these books, which we're going to share with you in our videos, are going to have a huge impact. Whilst the iPhone came out in 2007, considered just 1 year earlier in 2006, browsing the web was so appalling, typically web designers never bothered optimizing for mobile devices. With the advent of the 3G network, which enabled high-speed internet browsing, and the Apple iPhone, which gave us the browsing experience we're going to expect on our computers, the mobile internet started to explode. The iPhone set the standard, and since then the cost of owning a smartphone has plummeted. It's now completely normal to see someone sitting on the train, browsing the web with their iPhone, or an equivalent Android handset, or even a tablet like the iPad. If you look at this graph published by Morgan & Stanley, you can see the impact the iPhone had on our mobile lives. Whether you love or hate Apple, you can't deny the iPhone jump-started the mobile web. On page 15 of Mobile First, Luke Wroblewski points out that the global smartphone shipments surpassed global PC shipments 2 years earlier than expected. Originally predicted to happen in 2012, it actually happened in the first quarter of 2010. There are lots of other convincing stats in this book, which came out at the tail end of 2011, but just consider the traffic to mobile websites grew 600% in 2010. Focusing on what's important. Hopefully, I've managed to convince you that statistically, building for mobiles makes sense. But what about from a design perspective? Well, the first exciting thing about designing for mobile first is that it can be liberating to work with a very small space. With the constraints of such a small screen, you're forced to focus on what's important. If you could only display two things at the top of your screen, which would they be? This was liberating for us when working on a redesign of Sean Hanna's website, for example. If you look at the old website here, you'll notice that there are 11 navigation menus across the top. Really overwhelming, and especially to an owner of a mobile phone who's potentially on the move and doesn't have time to browse casually. We talked with Sean and debated at length, what menus can we lose? Which are the most important to your customers? Eventually, we more than halved the amount of clutter on screen, going from 11 to 5. We also cut down on the other distractions on screen, losing the random offers down the right hand side and narrowing the experience to one linear column for mobile users. Once you have a fully functional mobile site, you really have to justify what's needed when scaling up the experience for larger screens. You have to ask yourself, well, the mobile site still has full functionality and is a much cleaner design, so why are we adding more elements that may confuse visitors? In the case of Sean's site, we decided that the room afforded to us by a larger tablet-sized screen could be used to reveal a second promotion, and the footer would be split into 2 columns instead of 1 to increase the visual interest. We also moved the navigation to the right. Again, we're still keeping the original focus which made the mobile site so good. Because we went through the process of designing the mobile version first, with all its constraints, we clearly defined what was important to Sean's customers and kept that focus when scaling up to bigger versions of the site. Mobile first design has also forced us to improve our process when engaging with clients. Since we are talking about the information hierarchy more, and how that may change between different devices, we have started to use a wireframing tool to collaborate on these ideas. Wireframes are black and white diagrams that deal just with the information hierarchy of a site. Dealing in black and white means we leave behind conversations of style and art, instead concentrating just on the flow of data and how your visitors interact with your services. Because wireframes are very quick to create, we can often progress the structure of the website very quickly. Here's a quick wireframe of Sean's site, for example. Here you see the proposed mobile version of the site, with the hierarchy that we talked about, proposed tablet version of the site, and a proposed widescreen version of the site. Here's Professional Hair's wireframe, complete with adverts down the side, a slider, images, and an industry calendar. I can quickly drop in elements to show the client what ideas we have. Focusing on devices with different capabilities. Building mobile first also means we are forced to think about capabilities specific to different devices. For example, touchscreen devices can obviously detect touch, but as well as that they can detect orientation, portrait or landscape. If we look at JR's website, users are prompted to rotate their touchscreen device landscape to view directions to the salon. This is not simply a gimmick, it is because once you start dragging a map around, it can actually be difficult to continue to scroll down the screen. Last section. It's technically better to design mobile first. Almost everything in the mobile version of the site will also be in larger versions of the site. Therefore, you are laying a foundation of code that will also exist throughout the larger layers of the design. Mobile devices are only served the foundation layer of code, therefore larger images used in desktop versions of the site are not unnecessarily downloaded. As you upscale to larger devices, you'll start to layer more code on top of the foundation, like an onion. The additional code could be, for example, to move the layout around or add new elements. Starting the other way around, i.e. widescreen first, means that you instead start removing elements from the design as you scale down, resulting in unnecessarily bloated coding instructions for removing elements. I hope I've convinced you that whether you look at it from a technical perspective or a design perspective, designing mobile first just makes sense.